Morning, everybody. All right, got a few people on the stream. We are trying to multicast, so we're on YouTube, we're on Periscope, we're on LinkedIn. We're going to be focusing pretty much everything on LinkedIn for commentary. So if you're on the other streams, jump over to the LinkedIn stream and check us out. We are going to be broadcasting. I'm going to be broadcasting almost exclusively on LinkedIn as part of this series. So as you saw in the intro screen, this is the road to ReInvent 2018. And you're probably thinking, wait a minute, isn't that show in December? Yeah, it is.
Morning, everybody.
It is in December. Just the echo on the stream. LinkedIn's still in beta, making it very difficult to monitor streams. So I'm watching myself lag by a little bit here. But I am answering comments and responding to the stream on LinkedIn. Kick over there if you're on YouTube or Periscope, whatever the case may be, and we'll post this to those later. But yeah, the idea here is the road to reInvent. We are 75 days out to AWS reInvent. It happens in December this year. The first official day is December 2nd, which is the Monday, which really isn't the first official day. The actual first official day is really the Sunday night. But there are 75 days out, right? And I think that lands us right on the Monday. And why am I starting talking about this now? Well, believe it or not, I've actually already been writing about this. Every year I publish the ultimate guide to AWS reInvent, and I try to pull together all the crazy information about this show and what's going on well ahead of time so that you know. So there is, in May, registration opens up and you got to book your hotel, you got to book your ticket, and they've tied hotels to tickets, which means if you're not on the game, if you're not up there real quick, you are going to potentially miss out on the good hotel blocks, and that can make the rest of the week really, really tricky. So, I start publishing there. Coming up now, the session catalog keeps expanding, and mid-October, somewhere in there, there's going to be reserved seating registration. That's an absolutely critical event, and obviously we're going to be going live on that day to follow it out. But what I really wanted to kind of get on the stream and talk to people about and see what's going on, what you guys are thinking about, is that I think there's a misconception around cloud usage. I was writing a presentation, a talk, a sort of discussion starter for an event I'm attending in Toronto later this week on Thursday. CloudSec, Trend Micro is one of the main sponsors of it. And the question was around cloud adoption. And it got me thinking, as things normally do. And I think people are really comfortable using like SaaS applications, so Office 365, even Salesforce, stuff like that. But I think there's a group of people who are really comfortable with the cloud, and these are the folks who are used to, they are absolutely used to building IT services. They're used to firing things up and to building on servers, on containers, and serverless. And they're standard as far as, hey, we build stuff in IT. But I think there's a lot of people who could get benefit from using some stuff in AWS but aren't familiar with it. And that's sort of like the business developers, the people who are just, you can stitch things together, but you're not really sure about what you should be doing. And I think there's a really sort of intimidation clause or intimidation area where you kind of look at AWS and you go like, there is a ton of stuff. Let me show you what I mean. And this is the beauty of going on the live streams. We are going to not share that out. We're going to share out Firefox. Perfect. All right. We're not diving into code right away. So let me show you what I mean. This is, let me get this a little bit easier for you to see. Perfect. All right. Let me bump this font size up a little bit. So this is AWS's current standing around their product offerings. So you can see, let me get my, I'm just going to move me in the stream here. All right. So when you look at this, they have products which are services. We know them as services grouped by category. So things like application integration, like customer engagement, like Internet of Things, mobile, things like that, right? So some of these are really, really low level. Some of them are really, really high level. But no matter which way you look at it, there's a ton of these services, and it can be really hard to get your head wrapped around it. So if you know what you're looking for, that's pretty straightforward. But the entirety of the AWS Cloud is really, really hard to wrap your head around. Now, I'm the Vice President of Cloud Research at Trend Micro, but I'm also an AWS Community Hero. Now, there's almost 100 of us now. Not just Community Heroes, but there's Machine Learning Heroes and Serverless Heroes as well. But the idea is that we're folks who like to reach out to the community. We teach the community. We help engage. We a lot of user group interaction, a lot of talks, things like that. So part of that I find, I get to talk to a lot of people about how they leverage the AWS Cloud or how they're getting into it. And this came back to the core idea of, 75 days out, can we start streaming and talking and helping people understand a bit more of the cloud? Because when you dive into this ridiculous amount of services, there's simple stuff that you understand, like Amazon EC2, get a virtual server, an instance in the cloud, right? Even if you go into the containers, you kind of understand it. But, AWS Lambda starts to get a little more advanced for people. That's the core compute around serverless application design. AWS Outpost is like a literal rack of systems that you get deployed to your physical location to plug into your data center. It's the same with databases. There's a ton of these different databases that people aren't necessarily familiar with. RDS tends to be the safe set of databases where, this is your Postgres, your MySQL, your SQL, Oracle, MariaDB, that kind of stuff. But, have you played around with Neptune, which is a fully managed graph database, which is very, very cool, or Document DB, which is basically Mongo. Don't even get me started. Oh, please don't anyone say anything about the Quantum Ledger database. It's best if we just move on. But then there's, things like Cost Explorer. There's all these different kind of services. And now I'm going to be 100% honest with you. And before I do that, let me just remind everybody, wherever you're watching this stream, we're taking comments and chat on LinkedIn, so come on over to the LinkedIn page. Future streams are going to be LinkedIn only, and then we'll repost out to YouTube and point that obviously on social like Twitter. But the main source for this whole program, this whole campaign of mine moving up to reInvent is going to be here on LinkedIn. So the idea is that I know a lot of these services, okay? I've been working with the AWS Cloud since it came out 13-ish years ago. I know a lot of these really, really well, and that's kind of what's led me to be a community hero by sharing that knowledge. There's a ton of these that I've never touched. Okay, there's 120 some different services. A bunch of them I have never touched, and I'm sure you have never played with them as well. Here's what I'm proposing over the next 75 days. Now, this is not going to be a daily thing, but I'm thinking maybe 2 to 3 times a week. We get on the stream, we spend half an hour, maybe an hour together here on LinkedIn, talking about it, monitoring the comments. So you can fire up the comments. You can tell me your reactions, ask questions, things like that. And I think we should go through some of these services. Now we got a question from Augusto. I'll jump to that in just one second. But what I want to finish off on this point is that a while ago I did a sample, ended up being 42 minutes. It was supposed to be 30. You can see here on Textract. So I went through basically what the service is, how it's priced out, how it works, and then we got into the actual code. Right? Very, very simple stuff. You do not have to have previous coding experience. I walked through all the basics, made a ton of mistakes myself because I had never actually tried Textract, which takes text out of images, before I fired up this live stream, right? So I'm putting myself out there, making some mistakes, looking a bit silly in cases. But by the end of it, we actually found that we could pull out data as expected from Textract and see that we got confidence scores. So we pulled textual data out of an image just like the service was designed. It took a little longer than 30 minutes, but that's the kind of thing I'm thinking when it comes to, there we go, to the, too many tabs open already, and I only have 4. I have not had my coffee yet. That's the kind of thing I was thinking about these different services, which is a quick hit of seeing where it's useful, seeing how you can get value out of it, walking through it and exploring it, because I think there's a lot of use cases where people aren't necessarily leveraging services where they can, because I think they're intimidated. They're saying well, I'm not building this big, massive project. Something like Textract, very simple example. If you have images in your day-to-day business work that you need to pull text out of, knowing that service, taking 10, 15 minutes to figure it out, could be really, really valuable. So Augusto had asked a fantastic question here around, is serverless, the future of security, high availability designs, things like that? Yeah. 100%. So serverless is a design pattern. Lambda is a core part of that, but anything where you're not managing the infrastructure really falls under serverless. You'll see like DynamoDB, serverless. You don't have to worry about anything. You just kind of throw data into it. Route 53, really simple. It's obviously serverless. S3, serverless. There's a whole bunch of these services that are serverless by design, so you're not managing capacity infrastructure, things like that. You should be starting by designing serverless applications. streams. They're very simple, they're very straightforward, and they tend to follow the flow of your application. But in the reality is you're not always writing things from scratch. So that's why if you can't do it in serverless, do it in containers. If you can't do it in containers, do it in instances or virtual servers, right? That's sort of the idea. And the reason comes down to, what do you want to focus on? There's all this stuff that you can kind of get lost in that's not really worth it. Your job as a developer, as somebody in the business unit, in security, whatever the case may be, is not managing IT infrastructure. Your job is delivering business value, moving that business forward. Serverless is a fantastic way to do that because it takes most of the IT mountain that you do for IT's sake and pushes it off to AWS. And they're going to do it way better than we ever could. And even if they do it the same level that we can, we're not doing it. And I'm a big fan of doing less, especially when it gets you more. So absolutely, Gusto, serverless is the future. But if the future takes time, we can sit there and go, hey, it's really easy to build everything in serverless. But that's not the reality. There's a bunch of legacy stuff out there. There's a bunch of applications that are working perfectly fine. As you rewrite, you want to move to serverless. And as things are new, you want to move to serverless. But great question. Keep them coming. Obviously, I'm monitoring the stream for that kind of stuff. Back to the point at hand here. So we have all these services. I think I can help you understand some of them because there are great tools that you can use to make your life easier. So I had fired out a tweet on Sunday night talking about how I had used the new GitHub Actions beta on GitHub to automatically distribute my static website to S3. And a few people commented like, hey, that's really cool. Interesting approach. Like, how come? And the idea was, I made mistakes. I wanted to automate things. Instead of manually copying my site up into S3, I wanted to automate it. So now I did. Now, the endpoint of that is an AWS service, S3. The other pieces from GitHub are not, but you could use code commit just as easily. But I think there's a lot of these sort of business wins that people ignore because they think everything in the cloud should be big. Another great example, I host a show called Mornings with Mark. Normally once, maybe twice a week. I talk for about 5 to 7 minutes on a security and privacy issue, and I push that out to Twitter live, and I post it on my YouTube channel. So YouTube/MarkNCA, you can see it up in the corner. You see my name there. That's all my handles on social. And in that show, I automatically run a bunch of stuff in cloud behind the scenes, right? So I automatically take the video and pull the audio out and then transcribe that audio into text. I send that text to analyze to see the content of it. So that's under machine learning services. I end up using transcribe. I then use comprehend to discover the insights and the relationship in the text, just to see what keywords I'm talking about recently, right? And that's a simple script. It took me a little while to kind of perfect it, but it ends up being like 60, 70 lines of really simple, straightforward code that generates value every time I run it. So I just send it a video and it spits back results. I think that's huge. I think there's a ton of wins like that for most people. So that's the idea here, because reInvent is coming up. So you can see here on the main reInvent page, we've got 75 days left. I think if you learn more about the AWS Cloud going into reInvent, and we're not just going to focus, we're going to focus on AWS Cloud, but we're not going to ignore the other clouds. So especially talking about security, privacy, talking about design techniques, those apply to the other clouds as well. We'll focus on AWS because that's the big event that's coming. But realistically, this stuff is all out there. And that's really, really important. So we're going to do that. We're going to fire that up. You're going to see all of the great things about reInvent. If you want to know what's going on with reInvent, my ultimate guide is here. So go to read.acloudguru or acloud.guru, ultimate guide to reInvent. If you just search the ultimate guide to AWS reInvent, this post actually pops up. I'll put it in the description for the stream. And what ends up happening is this is a very simple, goes through and makes sense of what's happening with reInvent. I'm constantly updating this. Gives you a little blurb about who I am. I've been to every AWS reInvent since the start. And we talk about things like, the code of conduct, absolutely critical, how to set up registration and lodging. Every little key part is in here, including the How to reInvent series, which is really, really cool. That's Jill and Annie from AWS host this great YouTube show where they explain some of the inside things about reInvent, because there's 65,000+ people on reInvent or coming to reInvent this year, which is absolutely insane. insane. Now, I think we might have dropped the stream because we are on beta for LinkedIn here, but we're going to keep going because we're recording this and we'll post it up to YouTube after the fact, and I will put that back in LinkedIn so that we can check it out. But yeah, the AWS guide to reInvent is up and running, and then you can check the main AWS site, obviously, continuously. But that's the goal. So what I want to hear from you, what I'd love to see is some comments, is some suggestions of what you want to see. So like I said, 75 days out, planning maybe 2 or 3 streams a week on diving into some AWS services or talking about core AWS principles, obviously talking about security, talking about privacy, because that's a focus of mine, but not limited to that. We're going to talk about how to build, how to take advantage of some of these core services, and sort of how to dip your toe in the water and realize that you don't have to build massive things. There's a lot of value in really simple things that could help make your business day go better. Obviously, we've got some surprises. We've got some cool stuff planned. I keep saying we, it's just me. Got some interesting ideas, got some cool stuff I think planned that you will probably enjoy. Let's go back to this, that I think you'll probably really enjoy. But the idea here is engaging with you guys, engaging with the community, and understanding what you want to see, what you want to get out of this. I have a real deep familiarity with a lot of this stuff. I've been working with AWS for a really long time, and I'm offering that sort of to you folks. Do I know everything? Absolutely not. I'm going to make some spectacularly fantastic, amazing mistakes. Guarantee it, especially if we're live coding and working together on that kind of stuff. You are going to see some amazing things. So maybe tune in just to see somebody who's out there making ridiculous mistakes. But I find we can learn really well from those mistakes, and that's important, right? Learning that stuff, moving through. So that's the goal. That's the setup. Hit me up at MarkNCA on Twitter, on any social media, with your suggestions. Comment in the stream links down below, and let me know what you're looking for, right? And let me know what the best venue is here. I think LinkedIn makes sense because a lot of people are there, and I've got access to streaming. But if it makes more sense to push this to YouTube or both at the same time, that's cool too. But the idea here is I want to hear from you what you want to learn leading up to AWS. We can go complicated, but I think making it simple is going to be better. So something that we can ideally accomplish within 30 minutes, maybe up to an hour. Though, if we aim for 30, it's going to grow because I'm not going to know it inside and out. But if you have specific examples, specific challenges, let's get those. Let's share those. Let's walk up. Let's work together, because if we can learn more, the time we hit the ground running at reInvent, I think you're going to get way more out of the show because you'll have covered all that basic stuff. You'll have a better idea of the context you're working in. So that's the thought. That's the goal. That's the 2019 road to reInvent. Let me know what you're thinking. I really look forward to this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun over the next couple months, over the next 75 days, as we all get ready to meet in Vegas for the biggest by far conference in cloud that has still retained that very cool edge. So hit me up, let me know, and we'll talk to you real soon.